Shalom, shalom. Here we are, Bible study. Wonderful things are happening. Wonderful things are happening. Yahweh is moving in our midst. He's moving on the hearts of men and women in this nation and nations all around. And we give him praise for that. We're going to start out just investigating the Word. Not that we need to investigate it, we just need to dig into it and get the best and the most out of the meat that's there. Stay away from the milk, let's go to the meat. Okay, we're going to start out talking about a few things. One of it is we're going to go back to foundations. We always go back to foundations because we need to go back to our foundations. So we can take a look at our foundations, see what we need to do, if there's any repairs that need to be made, or if we're looking good, we just need to clean it up a little bit. We always need to go back to the foundation because that's what we build upon. We build upon the foundation. And at least if you don't, you might be building upon sand, and you don't want to be doing that. You'll be sinking, and we don't like to sink. We want to stay afloat, and that's why we watch Jerusalem. We watch Israel. We watch what's going on over there because that's the apple of his eyes. He tells us what's going on when we keep an eye on that. As you know, we have a new prime minister for Israel, Netanyahu. Things have already started right off the gate, moving forward and moving at a fast pace. And I anticipate that will transition to here because always you'll see the transition. What happens over here usually happens over here. There's a reflection there. So I'm anticipating a lot of things. In the midst of the things that are going on, there's things that are going on, we just need to keep lifting it up in prayer because we need to be in position at all times. The enemy's not happy, obvious. We don't care anyways because we already know the results. He lost. He knows it. So we just need to keep our feet in the positions that need to be kept in, and that's on the firm foundation. And that's the firm foundation of Yeshua. So I want to talk a little bit about Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. I was digging around on that subject quite a bit recently. And then there was one scripture that just came out, and I could not push it aside as much as I tried because I had to focus on something else, so I thought. So I was focusing on that, and it kept coming up and coming back and coming back and coming back because it also has what I was receiving also was a song that I knew about as well. And I liked the song. It's a good song. It's about Psalm. It's about one of the Psalms. And I thought it was very interesting because I'm saying it, and as I'm saying it, he's starting to reveal things to me. And I'm starting to write things down and start meditating on it, chewing it, and everything like that. And what he had given me was, if we go to Psalm 137, we'll get a backdrop of all this. This is, it's called The Experience of the Captivity. This is what little caption that says on the top there. And it's pretty neat. As we go through this, we'll see some things that I didn't see before. And then I'm going to go through a couple of different translations and see some things that point things differently as well. Yet in the midst of that, there was two things that he was talking. One of them was right hand. The first one, that's the second one. The first one was Yerushalayim. And that's a favorite of mine. You know, I say Yerushalayim because you look up the word, that's what it is in Hebrew. And there's no J, so it's not Jerusalem. Yet in English, most people will call it Jerusalem. That's okay. I looked up the word, and it has various meanings, yet the basic meaning that I found that really put it to the core of what he was speaking to me about was Yerushalayim means foundation of shalom. So I took a look at that, and I wrote that down because that's a firm foundation. If I ever seen a foundation, that's a firm foundation. We all know shalom. gets translated into peace. Yet if you really look at it, shalom is nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing broken. It covers everything. It covers. And we need to understand it. So when we talk about Yerushalayim, it's the foundation of shalom. So when I was reading it, they had said the foundation of peace. Yet when I automatically see, when I see peace, it's shalom. It goes right to, I already placed it in there. It's the foundation of shalom. So now I got a foundation. So when I know foundations are meant to be laid upon. So it's like, well then, great. And then that song starts coming to me. And it's in here. We're going to go to the part where, in verse 5, we're going to go through the whole thing so we get a better understanding of it. In verse 5 in 137, Psalm 137, verse 5, it says, and this is in the New American Standard, that's where they get where I can look up all the Greek and Hebrew. So in this version it says, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget her skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy. So in the song that I'm familiar with, that it says, Jerusalem, if I forget you, may my right hand forget what it's supposed to do. When I'm looking at this, I first see, if I forget you, Yerushalayim, if I forget you, foundation of shalom. I look at that, I'm like, foundation of shalom. If I forget you, may my right hand forget her skill. Now we're going to go into a little bit of that as well. May my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. When I first read that, my first impression that I got out of that was, of course, I always have to remember Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. Why? Why do I always have to remember? Yerushalayim is the foundation of the world, pretty much. It's the most contested land in any place there ever was. Everybody says it's theirs. Yet, according to the deed, it only belongs to one person. And most of the people who they say it belonged to does not belong to them. Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, belongs to Israel. It belongs to Abba. He purposed it for a reason. That was the beginning of all things. You know, everybody says, well, Jerusalem was originally here, originally there, originally here, here, there, and everything. Yet more and more what they're finding out is where Jerusalem is and where the temple is, it's pretty consistent. It's been that way. So keep that in mind. Even though people would say in the past that couldn't happen because these people didn't exist. There's no records of these people existing. Then 20 years later, somebody digs a hole in Israel. No matter where you dig, you're going to find history. They find out, oh, look, these people exist. So that scripture must be real. Oh, that means if that is real, then the results of the whole scripture is real too. That means the one who created all that is real too. Israel. That's no pun intended. I just caught that one. That's good. I'll remember that. Yet the most contested land in all of the world. Always has been, always will be, until the final day when the truthful owner will appear and say, and come and grab it, because it belongs to him. Rightfully so. He's got the deed to it. So when I started looking at Jerusalem, it's like, so that's the foundation of everything. Yet, of course, I started looking at it's the foundation of everything, period. Yet it's the foundation of shalom. So I wanted to remember that because that's a foundation. I want to build upon that. And may my right hand forget her skill. So to me, I'm looking at that. If I forget, Yerushalayim, may my right hand forget its skill. Well, what's the skill of my right hand? In the scriptures, right hand, most of the scriptures that are in reference to right hand consist of authority. You know, yet I'll go over and over. I went through all the scriptures of right hand, right hand, right hand, right, and it's just right hand. And the majority of them, it has to do with authority, and it's his authority. And that's where, so I say, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, so if I forget my foundation of shalom, my hand will lose its authority, its skill, and it's the authority. You know, like let's say the authority of the believer. What's that authority? You know, when Yeshua died and he rose again, he took the keys of hell and death, which no longer reign upon mankind if you apply the authority. You know, like Pastor Donald Long, our spiritual father, used to say, if a policeman stands in the middle of the road, blows his whistle, puts his hand out, car stops. Not because he's a superhero or that he has any special powers or anything like that. It's because of his authority. He represents the law of that city, that state, whether it be local or state. He represents that authority. So he, by putting out his hand, exercises that authority. Done and over with. He has that authority. It's not that he has to go out and read the book and say, look, it's written here, I have this authority. No. Same with us when we have the scriptures. We open it up and say, look, it's right here. No, it's got to come from here to here. It has to be real, not on a piece of paper. It comes from the piece of paper. You meditate on it, get it inside of you till it becomes real. Then you can exercise that authority. It's like, you have a badge on you. We all have a badge on us. It's what's behind the badge that's the authority. It's not the badge that's the authority, because anybody can have a badge. Remember when you remember little? Some people, if you're out there, remember when you're little, there's a little box with some caramel covered popcorn. We don't do that anymore. Yet they used to have a toy in there. Always have some kind of little toy in it. And they had everything. Yeah, it's just like that. It's just a piece of metal, plastic. In itself, it is nothing. It's what's behind it is the authority. Once you understand it here, the police officer understands that. He understands he has the full backing of the city or the full backing of the state when he exercises that authority. Same with us. When we exercise our authority in him, we have the full backing of him behind us. That's the authority of the believer. That's good. Write that one down. That's good. Authority of the believer. Well, we can stick on that. I'm going to bring around that. Yeah, we'll go back to 137, Psalm 137. May my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. That's the next part. So why is may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth? First thing I'm reading about this, and I'm saying, my speech, because that word for tongue has to do with lashon or lashonah, which has to do, it's used in a couple of words. It's used as tongue. One of the other ones is language. And those are the two that are used the most. It's tongue and language. So it's like, may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth so I do not speak. What am I not speaking? Yet we get into this. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you. If I do not exalt Yerushalayim above my chief joy. There is so much richness in here. And just reading it up front and then what I was receiving from it, because the authority, absolutely, because right hand, it absolutely, the majority of the time talks about authority. Now there's two authorities. There's the authority of the righteous, the kingdom authority, and then there's the other authority of darkness. It is an authority, yet it doesn't reign over the authority of the light, because the light overrules the darkness. Yet if people submit themselves to the darkness, they're under that authority. And to me, it's not authority, it's more bondage than authority. Yet it is an authority, So you exercise all of that authority underneath the darkness, and you have that darkness not backing you because you're being manipulated by it. They're using you. On the other hand, if you're using the authority in the light, you're using the authority of the kingdom. And that's a whole different. This one tries to put you in bondage. The light tries to get you out of bondage. There's a difference. And that's how you can tell. It's like, what authority am I operating under? Am I putting whatever use of that authority, am I putting something in bondage or someone in bondage, or am I trying to release them from bondage? It's a good litmus test to see where you are as far as that. Is my speech put people into bondage? That's what first thing I thought about when it talked about may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, was if I forget my foundation of shalom, may my mouth speak no more. Because if I forget that, what am I going to speak? The opposite. There's always a reciprocal. So instead of speaking the opposite, he says, I will not speak at all. Which is, that's the way I was interpreting it as I was reading it, because it was ministering to me, because of the way it was being brought to me. Now, I've also read it in the Telahim, which is very interesting, and we'll get into that as well. It says, may my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not exalt Yerushalayim above my chief joy, which is interesting. Chief is head, so it's the farmost, it's the head of the biggest part of your joy. It's where it all begins. Yeah. Now let's go right to the Psalm 137, verse 1. We're going to read it as it comes out to get a better understanding of what he's talking about. It says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. When we remembered Zion, upon the willows in the midst of it, we hung our harps. For there our captors demanded of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. Songs of Zion. Which is interesting, because I just want to give you a little backdrop of, because there's songs of Zion, which was interesting, because I'm saying, they want them to sing a song, the songs of Zion. So what are these songs that they want them to sing? Now, so to understand what they're talking about, we need to understand the songs of Zion. Within the songs of Zion, there's two subgroups. The songs of Solomon, which glorify Yahweh's presence in the city of Yerushalayim, and the enthroned songs, which through their number settings interpreted in some of them. This is through Britannica. They were saying it's much debated about la da 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 da. Yet, then we'll skip that and see, and the enthronement songs, and that acclaim Yahweh's kingship over the whole world. That's why they said it was a debate, because of that very thing. Because the acclaim Yahweh's kingship over the world. When I saw that, and I'm like, that is the truth right there. So the two subgroups. One is to glorify Yahweh's presence in the city of Yerushalayim. And the enthronement songs acclaim Yahweh's kingship over the whole world. Now, in Psalms, they break it down in many different categories. So the songs of Zion are those two, which is interesting. Because I was like, so what are the songs of Zion? I want to know them. I want to know what they are. Everybody, when I start looking up, everybody has their own interpretation, and the people get into their denomination. This is the songs of Zion. Well, what it is, the songs as they deemed as songs of Zion for their church. Still to be searched out to find out exactly which ones are songs of Zion. Yet the songs of Zion were that right there. It glorified Yahweh's presence in the city of Jerusalem. Those songs. And then the ones that were enthronement songs, which acclaim Yahweh's kingship over the world. We sing songs, and they're usually they're in the Psalms. The majority of songs that we sing like that are in the Psalms. Now, interesting enough, they talk about David didn't write all the Psalms. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Does that really matter? They're Psalms. David was a psalmist. Now, you get a better understanding when you say David was a psalmist because they had schools. You know, like they had school of prophets, they have schools for psalmists, which is interesting. Did he go to that school? I have not found any scriptures saying that. Yet he was a psalmist, because you can tell by some of the ones that you know he wrote. He was a psalmist. You know, he wrote psalms that when he sinned with Bathsheba, that was a psalm. He wrote that. And excellent psalm, because it has a lot of truth to it. You know, take not your Holy Spirit from me. Yet it's just, you can tell the difference. Yet there was a choir, because you look at each psalm, there says to the choir of, was it, or to the music of, or was it Koran, is it the guy's name? Yes, and that one, Asaph as well. Yet these are different groups that were doing the song, you know, which was pretty neat. So I'm looking at that. Now, that's cool. Yet it was the understanding of the glorifying Yahweh's presence in the city of Jerusalem. That one ministered to me. The other one, it's enthronement songs acclaim Yahweh's kingship over the whole world. That one, we will see that one. We sing it, yet they're both going to come to pass to the extent that we've never seen it before. So get an understanding. These are the songs of Zion. These are songs that lifted you up and out of your despair. So to glorify Yahweh in his presence in the holy city of Jerusalem. But I mean, we've been there. We've been to Jerusalem. In the midst of that, we're listening to those songs and music, and when we're going up to Jerusalem, what do? We're singing the song of ascent. We're going up Jerusalem. So there's a song for that, which is interesting, because enough. Do I have to say any more? Yet, there's a song for everything. Yet a song of ascent, because you're going up to the mountain. You're going up to Jerusalem. Now, when you're in Jerusalem, you want to glorify Yahweh's presence in that city. When we were in there, you could not except sense his presence everywhere you went. It was just like an open heaven everywhere you went. You could just tell the difference. It was, to me, it was awesome. And you talk to anybody who's been to Jerusalem, or Jerusalem, they will tell you that, yes, you can sense the open heavens there. Absolutely. So, and then Yahweh's kingship over the whole world. So as I'm going through that, I notice there's songs, different songs. So now, why are these people wanting songs to be sung to them? The songs of Zion. Now, these that are captives, you know, and they're tormentors. You know, to say, sing us the songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's songs in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget her skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy. So remembering, that's what they're saying when they're asked to sing that song. How can we sing that song? We're in a foreign land. We're not in Jerusalem. We're not in Jerusalem. Boom. That's where the ministering started coming to. We're not in Jerusalem. Yet we sing those songs. Yet where your heart is, so will he be. Your heart is there. That's the apple of his eye. So if you tend to that, you get that inside of you, you're there. That's why he says, how can we? Because we're in a foreign land. You can. They refuse to because they're not physically there. And that's the understanding that they have. Because we're not there, how can we do that? We can't express that joy like if we were there. See? Yet, all around the world, there's Jews all around the world. So right now, are they saying that? Being grafted in, are we saying that? No, absolutely not, because we can say that. We can sing it. Because for one, we're not captive. We're not held captive. We are free. So that's why we can sing those songs, no matter where we are, because there's no time and distance. And we know that because of the heart we have for Israel. So going back down, as the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. See, now they're remembering where they came from. Upon the willows in the midst of it we hung our harps. There our captors demanded of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, sing to us one of those songs of Zion. Now if you go to the Amplified, you go and you say there, we'll go right from the beginning, by the rivers of Babylon, there we, in parentheses, captives, sat down. Yes, we wept when we earnestly remembered Zion, for the city of our God imprinted in our hearts. I like that. On the willow trees in the midst of Babylon, we hung our harps. For there, they who led us captive required of us a song with words. See, they weren't looking just for music. They're looking for songs with the words. And our tormentors, and they who wasted us, required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. In the parentheses says, with the harp. And what's the harp? It's the music. Let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth if I remember you not. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. That chief joy. So this gives a little different picture. It's like we're in captivity. And I'm not, what's the best way to say? It's not in me to praise him because I'm not where I need to be in Jerusalem. Paraphrase. That's Tim's paraphrase. That's what it comes out to be. How can we? Because we're not in Jerusalem. So how can we sing the songs of Zion? Yet, even in this translation, I like it says, we talked about the heart. Let's see. We wept when we earnestly remembered Zion, the city of our God, imprinted on our hearts. Which I thought that was interesting. We remembered Zion, the city of our God, imprinted on our hearts. We remembered. See, it's still there. It's just because they weren't there physically, they couldn't do it, is what they were saying. In the midst of all of that, the thing that kept coming up and over and over and over again was the fact of, if I forget you, O foundation of shalom, let my right hand forget its skill. In this case, the skill was the harp. That's what the right hand was playing. So now, you can take it in another way. So right hand represents authority. So if you look at authority, what's that authority there? It's worship. So it's going to forget its skill. One translation says may my hand wither and cease to be. And the TLV says, how can we sing a song of Adonai in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand, here we go, wither. Let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth, if I cease to remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my chief joy. And the NIV is, how can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, if I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy. There's a little different there. Yet in everyone you look at, it's obviously because they're in captivity. They cannot get past the captivity. Yet no matter what you're going through, it doesn't matter, because you can sing the songs of Zion, because you're not captive unless you let yourself be captive, because he already set you free. You know, he already set you free. So as I was going through this, that whole thing, it was just the authority and that foundation. And one of the things he started bringing up to me again and again was the foundation. What is our foundation? When trouble came and challenges came to David, what was the first thing he did? Most of the time. He sought the Lord. He built himself up and got into his presence. When he did that, he was successful. What was his foundation? The presence of Yahweh. That was his foundation. The Word. You know, how does a man keep himself pure? By meditating on his Word day and night. It was the Word. It was his presence. You know, Yeshua said, he is the Word. If you know me, you know the Father. So obviously, he represents the presence of Abba Yahweh. Obviously. And it's like, can you show us the Father? If you've seen me, you've seen him. So, and that's a good example right there. Here he is in a foreign land. You know, Yeshua was in a foreign land. Because even in the scriptures it says, we're not of this world, we are aliens. We are not of this world. We are of the world of Abba Yahweh. That kingdom, in that domain, that's how we operate in. Yet if our foundation is not firm in the foundation of Shalom, that's a firm foundation. Building upon that, you'll be able to stand and withstand anything. And that's the truth. In the midst of that, David would always meditate. And he wouldn't meditate out of his head. It would be his heart. Because what did the Father say? What did Abba say about him? He's a man after my own heart. Why is that? Because once he knew he missed the mark, he got it right. Immediately. Nathan the prophet approached him and said, there's a man, a rich man who stole a poor man's sheep. And he says the man's worthy of death. And rightfully so, yes, that's the truth. What happened? Nathan the prophet says, you're the man. What's the first thing he did? He tore his robe, sackcloth and ashes, the whole deal. He repented. He knew he did wrong. He made it right. Was there consequences? Yes. He knew that. He went through the whole protocol. He says, at least something changed. He still is going to mourn for the child. So then afterwards, everybody didn't want to say anything to him. He knew the child was dead, and then he knew it was time to move on. Got up, moved forward. Went back to the foundation where he left off, because once you missed the mark, you got off the foundation. You're on the sinking sand. You got to get back on the foundation so you have a firm footing, and start building upon it again. In 2 Samuel 23:2, it says, the spirit of Yohevavhe spoke to me his word, was on my tongue. And then he says, Elohim of Israel said. Now, interesting is the spirit of Yahweh, of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, is Ruach, means breath or spirit. You know, and in the beginning when man was created, he breathed into man, to Adam, his breath, his spirit. And so the spirit of Yahweh spoke, which is to speak, which is daba, by me, his word, and that word that he uses there is utterance. His utterance was on my tongue, my speech. Lashon, Lashonah means the tongue. And then he goes on saying, Elohim of Israel said, and then he proclaims the word. Now, he had to be in a place for that to happen. You know, what was, his foundation? He understood the presence of the Lord, of Abba Yahweh, because he was in the presence most of the time. He served in the temple. So he knew the word because he heard the word here and here. He heard it audibly and in his spirit man. So he's able to say that. And you go to places like Exodus, where he says, I'll be in your mouth. Go to Exodus. This is good. Exodus 4. Go to Exodus 4, verse 10. We'll start with 10 first. Go here. And it says, Then Moses said to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, please, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And here they use Lord. It says, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time, past nor since. You have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. The Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth, or who has made him mute, deaf, or seeing, or blind? And he says, is it not I? Yeah, this is before they revealed some things. Now, see, verse 12 is where I want you to see. Verse 12, it says, Now, then go, and I, even I, will be with your mouth, and teach you what you are to say. Yet, what did he do? He says, Please, Lord, now send the messenger by whom you will. So he still, even though Abba Yahweh spoke to him and said, I will be there, I'll be with your mouth. Even I will be your mouth and teach you what you are to say. It's like me coming up to you. Look, I know you can't speak well. I know that you may stutter and you're kind of slow in speaking, illustration only. I will be the words. I will tell you what words to say and how to say them, when to say them, and you'll be fine. And then you come to me and say, please, have somebody else because I'm slow in speech. It's like, look, he said, I will do it. You have nothing to be concerned about. Yet he relinquished and he chose Aaron. Yet notice that he was there to do that. He says, I will be. And then you go look at the, where was the other one? I believe it was Dan. Let's go to Daniel, chapter 12. Daniel 12. Verse 7 through 10. Let's see, where are we? Let's see. See, I heard the man dressed in linen who was above the waters of the river as he raised his right hand. Okay, so this is talking about the right hand. And then he enters up towards heaven. So So he's relinquishing. And swore. So that's like an oath. By him who lives forever, that it would be for a time, times and a half, and time. And soon as they finish shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be completed. Now, the reason why I got that one was because of the right hand. This is the first one I saw with both hands were being used. And it says, as for me, I heard, yet I could not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? He said, go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up until the end. See, now he's speaking to him about these words that need to come forth. Yet he says, seal them up for now. Now, Daniel didn't say, well, I'm slow of speech. He was willing to, he's asking, okay, when? Because he knows, I'll say it. Yeah, and he says, okay, until the end of times. Many will be purged, purified, and refined. Yet the wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand. Yet those who have insight will understand, which is a perfect foundation for these times now, because the wicked will not know what's going on because they have no understanding. Yet those who have insight will understand, because you have understanding, because he's revealing it to you. Yet, interesting enough, when he speaks, he wants us to take those words and speak them forth. What did Yeshua say? You know, when he was being tempted. Now they call it the temptation. So every time that he was tempted, the first thing he would do, he used words that were in, most of them in Deuteronomy, were most of them. Yet he used them, and he said, it is written. Now he didn't use it like, it is written in Deuteronomy chapter 4. No, he did not. He said, it is written. He knew the words. He lived it out every day when he was studying Torah, because he saw himself every day. That was his foundation of shalom, the Torah. So he knew it. So when the temptation came, he applied it. He used the authority, which was interesting, the authority. And what happened? The enemy didn't like that. He couldn't do nothing. So he kept trying, kept trying, kept trying. What does he do to you? He keeps trying, he keeps trying, he keeps trying, he keeps trying. Because he wants you to give up. Eventually, if you give up, he wins in that area. Because he's going to go after your weak point first. Once he gets that done. It's little by little. It's always little by little. And it's like, if you can conquer little by little, it becomes great. If you give up little by little, it becomes great. It's a great loss. It can be a great victory, or it can be a great loss. Now, when we're coming back to this whole, to me it was a song, because he kept singing it over and over. And the artist who sang it, he's got a different style, and he was Hasidic. So that probably gives it away right there. Excuse me. Yet, the whole song is very ministering to me when I was listening. I didn't even go and look up the song and listen to it, because it wasn't here. The song was here. So I kept rolling it over, and I'm like, I know that's in the Psalm somewhere, so I looked it up. And when he started going over everything, and then it was in Psalm 137, you know? Yeah, it's like, in these end times, these times and the seasons we're in now, what's the focus of everything? It's to be off focus. The enemy wants you to be off focus. He doesn't want you to be focused, for one. Yet right now, the focus is Jerusalem. It's Jerusalem. That's the focus. Right now, you look at everything that's talked about, they're already talking about one side representing this country, unfortunate, yet that'll change. They're adamant about two-state. The other side, Israel, not so. They're adamant about opening up the land where they were told, go and settle the mountains of the Shimron and Samaria. All that area there, they're going to start opening it up now. That's not liked. It's not liked. It's not liked. Yet, that's okay, because we know what the outcome's going to be. Yet, that's a sign for us to know that, let's keep our eyes on Jerusalem. That is our foundation of peace. As that goes, we go. And that's why we have to keep our focus on it. We have to keep lifting up, Yerushalayim. We have to keep lifting up, Netanyahu and all those who are in positions of authority, to stand in that authority that they've been given, because we're going to reap that harvest. We definitely will reap that harvest. So, there's going to be, during all of this thing, it's because there was a heaviness on my heart during all of this, and it had to do with judgment. Judgment. Because it's a heaviness of judgment, and it's a heaviness of, because when they say judgment, there's two sides of judgment. And that's why I was focusing on, your authority and your foundation. During this time of judgment, there's two judgments. There's the judgment of the righteous and the judgment of the unrighteous. The judgment is, this is what you've done, well done, faithful son. And then, you wicked servant, There's righteous and there's unrighteous judgment. In his eyes, it's all righteous because the recompense that you're getting is what you called upon yourself. In these times, it's all about the leaders. The focus is the leaders. Leaders of nations, leaders of churches, synagogues, the body itself. And the heaviness that I got was, there's a judgment, and it's a serious one. And when in the leadership part, the leaders, it goes all the way down to you and me, because we're leaders. No matter what you do, you're a leader. I remember going to, it was Phoenix, Arizona, Pastor Barnett's church out there, and they said that everybody in this church that they had out there, this was a ministers' conference, everybody is a pastor and a leader. And I thought, how can everybody be a pastor and a leader? And they started coming across the stage, showing everybody in all the different ministries. Oh, this is the bus pastors. Bus pastors. And I'm like, what's a bus pastor? I never even heard of that. Well, little did I know, they had buses that go out into the city, not only for their services, yet for other events too. They go out to the city, get the people, and bring them in, because they have no way of getting in. I was like, wow. Well, not only do you have pastors, you have leaders that are on those buses that go outreach to the people out in the community. So each one of them is a leader. I was like, I never thought about that. That's so true. And then they had everybody. I mean, the whole church was up on it. And the reason I was impressed was he wasn't, showboating everybody. He was making a point. He says, we would not be here if it wasn't for all these people. They're the leaders of this church. Now, he's the pastor. He oversees the whole thing. Yet, everybody was a leader in that church. I was like, wow. You're a leader of somebody. You have an influence. A leader is somebody who has influence, who exercises authority that was given to him. In the corporate realm, if you're a leader, you're given authority to do certain things. So you have supposed to have tools to do these things. It's no different than in a church, synagogue, or a business. It's the same thing. So this judgment that's coming down, it goes from the top to the bottom, And it's like, I have a sense of we need to, everybody, it's a heaviness. We need to really examine our foundations, for one, so we can stand and then start building on it. Yet two, we need to know that there is a judgment coming, yet that we want to be on the right side of that judgment. No pun intended on the right side, yet he did say there's a right side and a left side. Goats are going on one side, sheep are going on the other side. Do I need to say which side? So we definitely need to be on the right side of judgment. And it's very heavy on me. And I remember, and I started sharing that vision, and it was during Sukkot. I believe it was this year or last year I started sharing about it, and I haven't shared it for over, well over 30 years. 30 years. It's been over 30 years since I shared that with people. And what it was about the judgment, the coming judgment. It was, and when Corinthians, where it talked about wood, hay, and stubble, and silver, gold, and precious stones, those are your works. What are you going to have when the fire consumes? And you're tested. That's why you got to be on that foundation, because the testing. And it was heavy back then, yet I seen the glory. I seen the glory. I sensed the glory, seen the glory, and was in the glory. So I know that is coming. And I hadn't heard people talk about that kavod, the heaviness, the weightiness of his presence in a long time. And then I started hearing Billy Brim talking about Kenneth Copeland, years after that, started talking about it. And now you're starting to hear more about it now. So I'm upping it right now because there's a heaviness about it. And I want to make sure, I was like, people, if you can hear me, and you're hearing here correctly. If there's something that needs to change in your life, change it now. Go home, examine your heart, not your head. Your head's going to lead you astray. Examine your heart. Is there things inside that need to change? Absolutely. David, man after God's own heart, he had things he had to change. How much more us? Yeshua went and paid that price so that we wouldn't have to go through all of that, yet we choose to go through it. Yet he's compassionate to hold our hands and say, here, come on a firm foundation, let's move, let's go. Let's get it right. And that's why there's such a heaviness when I was going over this earlier and through the week and stuff like that. And it's not where I intended to go, which usually happens anyways. Yet it's like, so where's my joy? We're in Sukkot. That's a time of joy. And in the Psalms, the rabbis and the others have written, it's a dirge. What that whole thing is. They're doing a dirge. And it's like, and they're doing it on purpose because you're supposed to. You're supposed to be, oh. And I'm like, no. That's the way they say that. Because the only time you're supposed to have joy is during the festivals. Well, no. Yes, you are. Yet, if I'm thinking about Jerusalem, I'm joyful. That joy rises up in me because I know the heavenly it's going to come down. It's going to set and make its perimeter around and sit upon the Jerusalem that's there. It says so in the scriptures. So I rejoice. I rejoice when I go there because I know maybe sometime when I'm there, it may be that time. Well, that'd be joyous, wouldn't it? Boy, we were singing a song of ascent. Yet knowing, it's like, yes, let's keep our joy full. Absolutely. Keep it tanked full and overflowing. Yet in order to do that, we need to get our priorities right. Absolutely. That foundation of shalom needs to be ever present. When he talks about, it's in Corinthians, he talks about the firm foundation, the foundation of stone or the foundation of the one built upon the rock or the one that's built upon the sand. That rock, we all know what that rock is, what that foundation is. That rock is the rock that was built and the foundation that was built in Jerusalem. That's the same. They believe it's still there. And I believe it is too. And they're going to find it. Yet in the midst of all this, let's encourage one another. And let's, because, when he started going over about the tongue, and it's like, I started seeing things not only with this, with individuals anyways, you know, because I deal with a lot of people, and I see it in them, and they don't even know. Yet those who know should know better, if you know what I mean. So I'm encouraging people to really examine their hearts and look, what do I need to change? We're in a season, and it's going to be a very, very awesome season. Yet in order for us to see it, we need to make sure that we do things correctly. If we're illustration only, if we're over there, like the scripture says, backbiting, doing this and doing that, and this, that one, and this, that one, this one, that, and that, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it. Our focus will be on that soft sand, and we'll sink quick. If it's on that rock, it'll be firm, and we will not be moved. You know, we will sing those songs of Zion. We will absolutely sing them, and we'll sing them wherever we are, because we're not captives. The captives are free, and then we can be. You know, we just came out of the season of Hanukkah, which is pretty neat because it's the season of light. Now, that light doesn't go out even though Hanukkah's over. Even though one of the things is the Hanukkah outside is been taken down because Hanukkah is over, yet in the natural. So the Hanukkah is put away, yet that light should still be shining and burning inside us. That oil should continually be burning. Yet we don't want to substitute the real light for a fake light. You know, Hanukkah has a wonderful, wonderful story, wonderful meaning, and very in depth. Yet you don't want to substitute the Hanukkah for the menorah. Hear me when I say that, because the menorah is what's going to be in the temple. That's the light that was there in the first place. Now, when they had the Hanukkah, it was a great miracle, so they added to it because of the 8 days. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Let's not forget why the menorah exists, and that light be shining in us, so that this temple will be able to be filled with that light. And because what did he say? He doesn't. Who puts a light on in a bushel and hides it? No, I put it on a hill so everybody can see it. So rise up on that hill, let that light shine. It's the light of the menorah. You know, who's the menorah? You know, even during that season there, he said, I am the light of the world. Now, he didn't say I was the light, the Hanukkah, yet he was saying I was the light that kept that going. Because of me, that kept going. You had your supply. It was met, and it will be continually met. Yet don't forget the menorah, because we don't want to substitute what's in the temple. We always want to remember what happened, because we learn from those things. And that's what Israel is supposed to do. That's why they had all of these things, is to remember. You know, Purim, it's not a festival we celebrate, yet what is it? It's a remembrance. It's to remember what happened. You know, the day, he called it for the Holocaust. Now that's a day of remembrance. Now they're not his celebrations. They're remembrances for us to realize how evil is, and how that light can change that evil. Because even in the midst of all of that, you hear stories about people lighting the menorahs or Hanukkahs during that time. Awesome stories, true stories, and they're real. So we don't want to substitute. Definitely don't want to substitute. Yet, on that note, I want everybody that hears my voice and that's watching this video, live and seasons to come afterwards, grab a hold of the foundation of shalom, you know, and examine yourself. Examine your foundation. Make sure there's no cracks in it. If there is, start building it. Start repairing it. Get it right. Let's make things right, because we want to be in the position when things start happening the way they're going to happen, because they are, that we're on the right side, because we're going to see this is what they call, these are seasons of miracles. We're going to see them. Yeah. We are going to see people raised from the dead. We're going to see people who are blind, they're going to see. We're going to see people who are deaf hear. You're going to see people who are mute speak. You're going to see people who are blind, they're going to see. You're going to see people who have challenges that people wrote them off. You're going to see them set free. We will see that. You got to be in position. So that's your goal. Get your paper, start writing down, get it right, moving on. Shalom, shalom. I know that you got something from this, and share it with everybody you come across.